The dust from the dirt road rose like the smoke of a sacrifice, suffocating and merciless. At the center of that private hell, 3 young girls stood, their wrists bound with thick cloth strips that had once been used to tie bundles of firewood. The backcountry sun punished their thin skin, the air shimmering with heat and indifference. Their father, Antonio, a man carved from bitterness and cachaça, bellowed like a cattle auctioneer, his voice cracked from a lack of soul. "Take 3 for a single coin, 3 good house girls raised tough in the wild. Who'll give more?" Iada, the eldest, squeezed her eyes shut, a fragile wall against the tears that threatened to fall. She was the rock of this small, shipwrecked family. Beside her, Jusara swallowed her sobs, a knot of despair and anger forming in her throat. Ritinia, the youngest, the last flower in that abandoned garden, trembled so much her bones seemed to rattle inside her skin. They were dirty, barefoot, their clothes torn like their own hopes. The men at the market passed by. They looked. Some laughed, a low, complicit chuckle. Others averted their gaze, their shame weighing more than their courage. An old woman, her face wrinkled like the dry earth, muttered, "Have you no shame?" Antonio turned, his hand already on his leather belt. "Shut your mouth, old woman. I supported these 3 until now. Now let them support themselves." The silence that followed was louder than the noise of the market. It was the silence of complicity, of fear, of cowardly acceptance. It was then that he appeared, not as a hero, but as a shadow moving against the sun. An older, tall man, mounted on a horse that looked as tired as he did. He wore a leather hat worn by rain and time, an unshaven beard, and a calm, heavy gaze of a man who had buried more than he had loved. He stopped, and the world seemed to hold its breath. "I'll give 19 coins for the 3 of them." His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the air like a sharp machete. Antonio laughed with disdain. 19 coins for 3 mouths to feed? Are you kidding me?" The man didn't answer. With a slow movement, he took a cloth sack from his saddlebag and threw the coins on the ground. The sound of metal hitting the dry earth was like thunder. One by one, the laughs died down, the gazes turned. "I'll take them now." The question wasn't a request, it was a statement. Antonio spat on the ground, greed overcoming pride. He gathered the coins with the haste of a starving animal and cut his daughter's bonds with his knife. "Take them, and if they run, it's your problem." The man dismounted. His name was Zeka. He approached the girls, and with a gentleness they didn't know, untied each of their wrists. He picked up Ritinia, who was trembling like a leaf, and placed her on the horse's croup. His large, calloused hand was surprisingly gentle. "Where are you taking us, sir?" Jusara asked, her voice a thread. He looked toward the horizon, to the distant hill where the sky met the earth. "Home," he answered. The journey was a long and dusty silence. At the top of the hill, a simple house with a wooden porch and a crooked roof appeared like a refuge or a new prison. 3 men were waiting in the yard. These were Zeka's sons, Juam, the eldest and most silent, Bento, the middle one, with brute strength in his arms, and Tiago, the youngest, with an ancient sadness in his eyes. Zeka dismounted. "This house is mine, and now it's yours too." He looked at his sons. "These are Iara, Jusara, and Ritinia. They're staying." The young men didn't smile, but they didn't look away. They carried the same gravity as their father, the same landscape of loss. That night, Iara stood at the window of the room she now shared with her sisters. The bed was simple, made of wood, but the sheet was white and clean. She looked up at the starry backcountry sky, a vast and indifferent canvas. She thought of running, of crying, but for the first time in a long, long time, she felt something different sprout deep inside her. It wasn't hope, not yet. It was doubt. And doubt sometimes is the first step out of hell. Outside, Zeka sat on the porch, lit a straw cigarette, and watched the darkness. In an old notebook, hidden in the bottom of a drawer, he wrote 3 names. Next to each, he drew a cross and, with hesitation, a small broken heart. The girls didn't know it, but the price he paid wasn't in coins. It was in promises. And on that land, in that ranch, in that family of broken men, everything was going to hurt long before it began to heal. The routine on Zeka's ranch was made of silences and gestures. Words were saved like water in a drought. The sun was the clock, and work the prayer. On the first morning, Iara awoke before everyone. She found Zeka sitting on the porch, his eyes lost in the brightening horizon. "Why did you buy us, sir?" she asked, her voice still rough with sleep and suspicion. Zeka didn't turn. "Because I saw my father in your father's face, and I saw my sons in your faces. I saw people being thrown away like animals, and I've seen animals treated with more respect." He finally looked at her. "There's no owner here, just people trying to fix what life broke." Slowly, the girls learned the language of that place. They learned that the bread Tiago made in silence was an apology for the world, that the wood Bento chopped with fury was the grief he didn't know how to cry, and that the care João took with the horses was the love he could no longer give to a person. One day, Zeka sat with them on the porch. The afternoon sun painted the floor orange. "I didn't bring you here to be anyone's servant, but my sons have been alone for a long time. If there's a feeling, if you want it, I want to see this house full of family, but only if you want it. Forcing, never." Ritinha, the purest one, asked him, "Do you have a wife, sir?" Zeka took a deep breath, a lifetime of longing in that sigh. "I did, but life took her and took the rest of me with her, until yesterday." That night, Iara saw him writing in the old notebook. She didn't peek, but she felt he wasn't noting down debts or possessions. He was drawing maps of lost souls, trying to find a way back home. The weeks turned into months. Jusara, who used to only cry, began to help Bento in the garden. The work with the earth, the smell of the wild, the silent company of that gruff man, all of it seemed to heal something inside her. Tiago, the quiet artist, started leaving little gifts for Iara: a wildflower on her pillow, a charcoal drawing of a bird, a piece of warm cornbread. They were conversations without words. Ritinha found a protector in João. He didn't smile much, but his eyes followed her through the yard, making sure no harm came to her. He fixed a rag doll for her, and the gesture was worth more than 1,000 hugs. But peace in the back country is as fragile as glass. One afternoon, Bento returned from the village, his face grim. "There's a man with a scar on his face asking about you all. Said your father owed him a favor, and that the favor had a woman's name." The air in the house instantly grew heavy. The girls looked at each other.
the same old fear returning. Zeka stood up, his body seeming older, more tired. "Does he know where we are?" Bento nodded. "He knows." Zeka went to his room and came back with an old shotgun. He said nothing. He just leaned it against the wall, next to the door. The message was delivered. The past had knocked. And in that house, where everyone was running from their own ghosts, they would have to unite to fight a demon of flesh and blood. The fortress they had built with silence and respect would be tested by fire. The night the man with the scar returned, the wind howled like a wounded animal. Zeka didn't sleep. Sitting in the rocking chair on the porch, he was the sentinel of his fragile peace. His sons didn't sleep either.